Oh, it's Wednesday. That's at least something. Wednesday. It's gray and cloudy, and my 10-year-old with autism said, "Ooh, it's cloudy. There's a fog delay." I said, "No, there's no fog delay." "Ooh, it's cloudy. You can't go to school." It's like, you can go to school, but you clearly are like me and you just want to stay home, right? Because it's winter. It's still January. I think today is finally the last day. I've been saying that for like, I don't know, a month. So this morning we're going to have a little coffee and we are going to talk school vouchers. And then immediately following, we are going to go over to my subscriber page where you can ask questions. But hopefully you'll get a lot of information. And it doesn't mean I won't answer your question, but sometimes I get distracted. So I just sort of try to pay attention to what I'm supposed to be doing. Hold on a minute. Let me get my phone thing set up here. So yesterday, a girl I know here in my town had put up this thing about vouchers. And honestly, I'd sort of blocked it out, what was happening with vouchers, because the whole thing is very, it's disheartening, particularly when you live where I do. And if you need to know a little bit about me to start, I am from Eastern North Carolina. I live in Eastern North Carolina. I grew up in Rocky Mount, and now I live in a town called Edenton. I never went to public school until I did a master's degree at Chapel Hill and then a PhD at State in educational research. So hence why I'm kind of dorky and love this topic. I have 4 children, 2 boys off at private boarding school. They were in public school through the 8th grade. And then my littlest has special needs, and he's in the 3rd grade in public school. And our expectation for him is that he will remain in public school until he turns, in North Carolina, 22. Yes, vouchers are a done deal in North Carolina. But, Laura, I think just because something is a done deal doesn't mean it's not worth talking about. And it doesn't mean that things can't change. It's not like, well, it is. Let's say you go get a tattoo and you really don't like it. You can get it zapped off, right? So just because our General Assembly has voted to spend $500 million a year on vouchers doesn't mean that we're going to continue to do that. Things change. North Carolina used to be a wonderful place for education, and slowly over the years, it's dissipated. And I think a lot of people don't understand why, or they might think vouchers are good. You know, I want my tax money, and I just think it's worth a conversation because there's a lot to unpack in it. So get your coffee and get settled in. So I'm going to start with a few comments that people said to me. I put up a voucher post yesterday, and some people made comments. And I love a comment, particularly comments that are thoughtful. So one person said, "I wish you could have spoken about this before the state legislatures voted on the change," right? And I said, well, I've spoken about it 100 times, but what I wish is that people could have voted smarter. So I think a lot of times people say, well, I'm a Republican, or I'm conservative, or I'm a Democrat. And maybe they've chosen a political avenue because of one thing. You know, maybe they're gay and they say, you know what, I don't want McCrory or whoever it was doing the bathroom bill. For me, I am fiscally conservative. You know, my family pays a lot in taxes. Like I get it. I have children in private school. So there is nothing about what I'm going to say that makes any sense that would help me personally, which is helpful. But a lot of times I like to talk about things that I sometimes think, oh shoot, I can't talk about it because people are going to think it's me trying to, get money or something. What Ashley, a longtime subscriber and friend of mine, just said is Pender County isn't a mess. I think, Ashley, what you're seeing all over North Carolina is a mess in public schools. And here's another comment. So this is a longtime friend in my district said this, and teacher. I think the real conversation is about, she said, the bigger question is, how does North Carolina attract quality teachers, or in some cases, any teacher, to fill vacant positions? Paying teachers more in order to attract teachers instead of paying vouchers is a beginning. I wish that government officials and school officials would get together with the community and have a deep discussion about why people are starting to turn to public charters, private schools, and homeschooling. I think every community probably has differing reasons, but I think those discussions would be much more productive than the constant finger pointing. Why are people turning to these other programs? Well, I'm going to tell you why. It was not accidental. This is not a snowstorm that has rained down on us, right? This is purposeful. So Ashley in Pender County is saying they want to make the school year longer, no more teacher pay, test in January, and schools go 9 to 4. So this is a higher up decision from your General Assembly, or the people that are voting. And this is all intentional. This is not accidental. It's not like people don't know what's happening. It's purposeful. So years ago, North Carolina was very strong in education. Over the last 10 or 20 years, there has been a push to take money from the public school system and push it into privatization. And you might say, well, why? Why do that? Because it's cheaper. That's the only thing I can tell you. It's cheaper. And if you go on the Opportunity Scholarship, if you go on the website for the state, it will have a little, it's the circle with like the pie graph, pie graph. And it will say, students that go to private schools save North Carolina 40%. So as much as you might think, I want the voucher and I should have choice, that's the rhetoric that has been given to you. And people are drinking it like they are living in Jonestown. It's not true. And it's, you know how your kids on Christmas night and everybody's all keyed up and you say you have to go to bed because if you don't go to bed, Santa's not going to come, right? And they go to bed. They take their excited selves and they get in the bed and they lay there and they just, they're so excited. That is what Phil Berger and like-minded politicians are doing to you. They are tricking you under the guise of, you should want your tax dollars. You need choice. Your schools suck. You don't have teachers. You need to leave. You should get out of here. You should do what's best for your children. You should get your tax dollars. And people are believing it. And it's not true. Because they can't say to you, we hope you mother frickers leave the public school system because it is going to save us a lot more so we can hand over some tax credits to the rich. And we don't care about long-term North Carolina. We're old. True, a lot of politicians are old. White dudes, they're going to live like 5 more years. What do they care? You're going to be left behind with all these children that haven't been educated. And then you're going to be spending a shit ton more on people to sit in prison. You know? So what I said to the friend that said, I think we need a real conversation. The real conversation is about why our government officials are dismantling public education by starving it. They started first with annihilating teachers. Less pay, they took away benefits like health insurance once they're retired, competitive salaries. Then we started into charter schools. We thought, well, charter schools are going to be great. Well, the problem with charter schools for government officials is that charter schools have to follow the rules to some degree, like public schools. They have to do testing. 50% of their teachers have to be licensed. They have to have a curriculum. Yeah, they took away pay, like if you had a master's degree. Well, that didn't work out well because the charter schools overwhelmingly have performed poorly. So then we moved to vouchers. So we offer vouchers to poor families under the guise of choice, right? Poor people should be able to leave. So they put this voucher money aside. Well, you know what happens? Nobody takes it. Maybe 25 million, I think, was used for vouchers last year. Nobody wants it, okay? A few people do, but not many. So if you want vouchers to work and North Carolinians aren't taking advantage of the voucher program, what do you do? So you have a country club, and the country club is very nice, right? But you can't get people to join. And the joining fee is $15,000. Well, how do you get more people to join? I know, I have an idea. Let's waive the joining fee. It's now free to join the country club. Do you want to join? Well, hell yeah, I can join. I got some, yeah, I'm going to join. That's what's happened with the voucher program. So last year, the Senate voted, you know what? We're going to offer vouchers to everybody. We're going to have the universal voucher program. So now North Carolina is the 10th state to have a universal voucher program. And anyone can apply to get a voucher. Anyone. The Goodnight family, billionaires in North Carolina. If they want to apply for a voucher, they can get their $6,600 to go to use towards a $40,000 a year education. Adrian can write a little note to the state and say, I want my $10,000. So you might say, well, that makes sense. I should get that. Those are my taxes. Well, what I would encourage you to think about is the fact that 100,000 people in North Carolina now utilize private school. Should people have a choice? Yes. Should taxpayers pay for it for everyone? Do you think you should pay for me to send my kids to boarding school? I don't think you should. I mean, I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay for people flying around on private jets. Does anybody want their tax dollars to go to that? Maybe the really rich people. And honestly, I think a lot of them have enough sense to know, boy, if we don't have good public schools, we're not going to have a good workforce. We're going to have lots of problems. So we are going to take 100,000 people and we are going to give them a minimum of $3,300. Well, right away, that's $330 million. So we've just spent over half of our voucher money. So what you're doing is you're taking people's choices and you're putting it as a tax burden on the state. Let's just say you take the cat bus to work. You don't love the cat bus, but you take it. But you get sick of it and you want to get a car. Do you say to the state of North Carolina, I pay taxes. I don't want to pay for public transportation anymore. I want a car. I want a voucher for a car. No. They don't want that. So this person said this. I pay my taxes and help fund public school. I'm not sure why my dollars shouldn't help my child have a choice to attend a different school. I also know families who choose not to fill out the application because they don't need it. The school will not automatically be given the money. If they do not need it, they may not apply. Now, that is true. I'm sure there are people out there that are pious and are not going to apply for the money. But I would just like to point out the last time something like this happened in North Carolina, all over the country. During COVID, the majority of families got a check. My family got a check, and I can't remember what it was for, maybe a couple $1,000s. Do you know what I did with that check? I deposited it in the bank. In the bank. Yes, so private schools can refuse to take vouchers. They sure can. And you will probably see, what you'll see is kind of an upper echelon private school not take a voucher because they don't need to. So what research shows is that it's kind of the lower end struggling private school that loves a voucher, particularly a private school whose tuition is similar to the voucher. So here's something that's happened in Michigan, very interesting. So if you have let's say you have a public school or private school, and it's $4,500 a month or $4,500 a year to pay for. So the state of North Carolina spends about $10,300 per child. So with every child in North Carolina schools, you got $10,300. Now we know that cost and quality are sisters. They are best friends. The more money you spend, the better education you get. Very similar, I say, to a hotel. If you're going to go, you can go to the Ritz-Carlton or you can go to the Hampton Inn. Which one are you going to choose if they cost the same? You're going to choose the Hampton Inn. You're not. Maybe if you're Amos. You're going to choose the Ritz-Carlton, right? All day long. So, what was I saying? No, I forgot what I was saying. Voucher for income level? No. So there is no income level now in North Carolina. Oh, for the schools that are going to take it. So what you've seen in other states, because there are 9 other states that have done this, they might have a public school. There was one I was reading about. It was $4,900 a year. Well, they raised their tuition by like $4,000 and encouraged families, go ahead and apply for the voucher. Most of you are going to get $5,000 in a voucher. So at the end of the day, you're going to pay less in tuition than you paid previously because you're going to have the voucher now. So you know who wins in this situation? The private school. Because now the private school sees, hey, I've got somebody to finance my school. And this is going to be awesome. Is transportation included in their school choice? No. So you might say school choice for many people, like somebody said to me yesterday. Well, maybe I said, I don't. Come on in. It's my nurse. Come on in, Gina. Watch out for Cujo. Somebody said yesterday, well, you might have to move since Amos doesn't have anywhere to go. Is that really the answer we want? I'm talking about vouchers. Nurse Gina's going to hook me up to the IV. I would tell you that the families like mine with Amos, a voucher is not going to help him. So private schools in the country can turn people away for everything except race and nationality. And maybe those two things are interchangeable. So in North Carolina, about 90% of the schools that currently take vouchers are associated with a religion. There is one school in particular, they get $2 million a year in voucher money, and they do not accept students who have a parent that identifies as homosexual, as a gay parent. So your child, you want them, they're supposed to get a voucher, you want them to go to the school, but you're gay, so now they can't go. And it's state money that's going to pay for them to be there, but now it's not okay. So you're kind of moving back right to segregation when you get into that. Not to mention no Amos. Why does no one ever talk about mismanagement of millions of dollars within public education, car allowances? You know, you've brought up a good point, mismanagement. So North Carolina is different than any other state in the country because of one thing. We have the least requirements for a school to get a voucher than any state in the entire freaking country. So let's just say you want a voucher. Your child is going to get a voucher and they're going to get a better education. This is not a one size fits all. Could there be a time that I think somebody should have access? Yes. Do I think the low income rule was smart? Yes. Because if the average price of a school, private school in North Carolina is $10,000, a voucher of $4,500 isn't going to help a lot of people. So what you see is when the voucher started in North Carolina, it was 50% black, 20% white. Now it's 20% black, 60% white. So what you're seeing is a switch. It's not really helping poor students get out of poor schools. It's going to just be a tax credit for wealthy families who are choosing schools that are in no way accessible to students that are poor, right? So here's the deal in North Carolina. A school that receives a voucher, now some of these schools might have rules, but the point is that they don't have to. So I want you to think about if you have a child in public school, all the things that have to happen. If you get a voucher, the school does not have to have any licensed teachers. None. Not one. You have to have a GED. No licensed teachers. Only one person at the whole school has to pass a criminal background check. One person in the whole school. So as a volunteer at my son's school, I have to do a criminal background check every year just to walk in the door of his school and read with a child. Okay, here's number 2. Number 3, no curriculum requirements. Not one curriculum requirement. None. Number 4, no testing required. No testing. No, the school does not have to be accredited, Phyllis. It absolutely does not. And so number 5, which is really just a compilation of the prior 4, is there's no accountability for student achievement. So there is a school in Elizabeth City. It's called a school. The person has a GED, and she applied and she got her criminal background check, and she makes about $90,000 a year because parents drop kids off for a few hours a day at her house. So she's making pretty good money under the guise of being a school with your tax dollars. Sort of awesome. And so now you say, well, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, why are people blaming the Republicans? Well, I wouldn't blame a Republican voter. What I would certainly do is you have to call a fact, right? So if, I'm trying to think, what's a fact? Oh, I know. Okay. So if you are minority and you get kidnapped, your face is less likely to be on People magazine. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. Elizabeth Smart herself has talked a lot about how indigenous women get neglected in the whole kidnapping, murder debacle, right? Very similar to this conversation. Very similar. Because people they vote, and they might say, you know what, I'm voting because I want to pay less taxes. That's my parents, right? They are Republicans and they don't want to pay taxes. I used to talk to my dad, oh, we should do this, that, and the other. And he'd say, do whatever you want, but don't raise my taxes. Well, and my husband said, well, I'm just not making the votes on education. Education is the number one line item in all state budgets. The number one. So that's where the most of your money is going, right? Tell me when you need me, Gina. And That's why it matters. So you might be voting for somebody that you think, well, I like them. They're going to do this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, they are taking your tax dollars in North Carolina, and they have decided, we don't want to fund public education. We don't want to follow the Constitution of the state of North Carolina, and we want to privatize it. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to save money. We want to save money. It's not really for you. They're going to pretend that it's for you, but it's not for you, because how could your state be better with people that are less educated or access to good education? So if you look at my little town, or some of these states that have done this, school systems close down because so many kids flee and they go to these different private schools that the school system has to shutter, and then school systems have to merge. Well, what happens in Ohio when the private school shuts its doors? Suddenly, there's 1,000 kids that have nowhere to go. So then the school system has to start over again. Well, that's expensive.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me just interrupt.
Okay, I'm gonna put it right here.
All right, I'm gonna reach in there and get your feet.
Okay.
Reach to Adrian's bosoms.
Don't ban me, Facebook.
Exactly.
Now, sounds like the whole state of North Carolina needs an overhaul. Well, I don't know if I think people need to really be thinking about who they're voting for and what they want. Now, this is interesting. Earlier I told you that this voucher money has never all been taken. And so this newest thing of, well, let's offer voucher money to everybody so maybe more people will want it, right? Because the General Assembly is concerned about, are people going to want the voucher money? They are spending $1.1 million in marketing the voucher program alone in 2024. $1 million to encourage people to apply for money so they can go to private school. Now, does that sound like that's being done because they care about you? $1 million. What could you do with $1 million, Gina?
What couldn't I do with $1 million?
Well, you know what I was thinking you could do? In Edenton, you could build a swimming pool so that kids might learn to swim. You could open a community center. You could have basketball courts.
You could have a better adoption program for animals.
Oh, that would be good. Like cats.
Like they have like the whole room, and everybody gets to play together unless you're a bad cat and you have to put in another room. Yeah.
Unless you're a bad cat.
Yeah, then you'd have to go in the timeout room.
Yeah, the timeout room. Hold on. So again, our accountability measures in North Carolina are the weakest in the nation. And parents who you might say, well, you know what, parents should have this option. I think we have to say all parents aren't experts on education. Just like I'm not an expert on a doctor, right? So if you said, well, people should be able to choose any doctor they want. Well, don't we want to make sure that the doctor has a medical license? Don't I want Gina to be a licensed nurse? Or are you going to say to me, well, you can pick the nurse you want. You got JoJo down the street. JoJo trained as a nurse, on TV. No, we don't let you do that. So why would we act like education is any different from any other profession? Real estate, lawyer, accountant, all these professions, we value that people should be certified and accredited and have a teaching license. Like a funeral home. So now what we're saying is, well, it doesn't matter. Parents are the smartest, right? Parents know better. Let's see what Phil Berger. He insisted every family should have an option when it comes to children's education. Public schools aren't the right fit for every student. They should be able to take their taxpayer funding with them. Quote, "It makes no sense whatsoever for someone to try to say with a straight face that just because a child leaves the traditional public schools that the money ought to stay there," said Phil Berger. This is the same person that changed the law so that his, I think it was him, so that his son could win on the ballot. Like they put his name first on the ballot or something. Where Governor Cooper said, "I'm not against private schools, but I am against taxpayer money going to private schools at the expense of public schools." And that's exactly what is happening. The future of our state goes to class in a public school, and we have to invest in the future. Even Catherine Truitt, who is our state superintendent, she promised when she was running that she would not support increasing the voucher program. And do you know what happened last year when this vote went through? She buttoned up her lip and never stood because she is a puppet of the General Assembly. She didn't argue against it, even though she promised she would. She promised she would. And she didn't. So this year, you're going to have the lowest income families are able to get $7,000. The wealthiest families can get $3,300. Right now, your children go to private school. My children go to private school. The public school just does not get the money that goes with them, right? So they're not going to get the $10,000. But what is different about this is that if I apply for the voucher, and I have 2 children in private school this year, I'm going to turn around and the public school system, which right now doesn't get $20,000 for my 2 older boys, but they just get money in general. They're going to take $6,600 from the public school and give it to me. So the public school is here, and then the public school is going to lose a lot of cash. Which the research shows ultimately, for the most part, is going to prop up inferior or subprime private schools or enable fraud and waste. So the ultra wealthy parents who haven't even ever dreamed of putting their kids in public school are now going to cash in on a program that will drive racial and economic segregation and enable widespread discrimination against kids who are, maybe they have a gay parent, or maybe they have a disability. Maybe they have Down syndrome. Maybe they have autism. And they're not welcome to those programs. And if you think that's not true, Fayetteville Christian School in North Carolina, they collected $1.3 million last year in 2023. In their handbook, it says this, quote, "Will not admit families that engage in sexual promiscuity, homosexuality, or other behaviors that Scripture defines as deviant and perverted." So you're out. Now this is a different part to take. So where we live, if you have a child with a disability, you're entitled to even more money. So for Amos would be, our public school system receives and this was maybe 2 years ago when I did this math, $15,471 to educate Amos, $9,865 from North Carolina at the time, $4,093 in state disability money, and $1,500 in federal disability money. Okay, so that's how much the state of North Carolina is doing. Now, North Carolina is saying to me, Adrienne, you have a choice. You can choose something else for Amos. And I say, okay. So I apply for all the vouchers available to Amos. And now they've all kind of been combined into one, but it used to be there would have been 3. So Amos is eligible for $21,200 in vouchers. So you might say, well, you should get them. Well, where's he going to go, right? And I like our public school. I'm happy there. He has access to his typical peers. He's getting a good education. I'm thrilled with where he is. But the state of North Carolina says, but Adrian, we'll give you $21,200 to leave your public school. Well, my question, and I asked this to Mark Robinson, who is running for governor of North Carolina, and the only thing I can tell you about him is you should run away as fast as you can. And I asked at the time, Mark Johnson, who we thought was bad, but in hindsight, he was probably better than Mark Robinson. If it's about me having a choice, then why can't I have my $21,200 and give it to my public school system? Right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Gina?
Sure.
She's not paying attention. So if you want me to have a choice, and it's about choice, then I should be able to give that extra $5,000 to Amos's school. Right? If it's a choice, well, you know why you can't do that? Because it's not about a choice. It's about saving money. They want me to leave the public school system because in the long run, that will save money. It's very important that I drill that in and want people to really, really understand it. So this isn't about Republicans wanting to destroy education. This is about the General Assembly in North Carolina that is controlled by the Republican Party. And they are solely responsible for these changes to dismantle public education. And I don't think people voting for them really understand what this is going to do. So when the rubber meets the road in my town, and we have a couple of these private schools that are accessible for people that have transportation. Now, if you don't have a transportation, you're out. Well, you know who doesn't have transportation? The poorest of the poor, right? So suddenly you're not trying to help poor people get out of crappy schools because the poorest of the poor have to stay put because their mama works at the chicken plant and she goes to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m, you know? And then, so you have people leaving, the people that are already gone that say, well, you know what? I'd like some money. If the government's giving away money, give me some, just like the checks from COVID everybody was excited to spend, myself included. And so they've left. And then you have maybe lower middle class folks who say, you know what? Maybe there's a shiny penny over there. Maybe there'll be less behavior problems in classrooms. Maybe I want to try it. So they leave. So the people left, you have people with disabilities left, and then you have people who are too poor to leave. And that's it. And so then at that point, in our town, it's particularly ironic because we were given a grant by the state of North Carolina to build a $80 million high school. We're going to have a brand new, shiny high school right downtown. It's going to look great. And at the same point, as we're building this high school, the politicians who gave us money to build a high school are also spending $1 million a year to entice people not to go to it. They are trying to beckon them away and send them away. So we're going to have this high school, yet we have politicians who are saying, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. Get out. And if you think this doesn't apply to me, I don't even have kids, I don't care. Well, tell me how you feel about having a hospital in your town. Do you like having a hospital? Do you like being able to go to an ER at 1 a.m? Because I do. And trust me, my family, I bet, has been 15 times over the years to the ER with 4 children and one that gets croup. And when your school system has to close down and merge with another school system, your teachers move and they say, you know what, we're going to go on back to Raleigh.
We're going to move to Wilmington. We got family in Clemens, and they leave. Well, then the spouses that might be a nurse or a doctor, or maybe they, an anesthesiologist, they leave too. And then because the biggest employer in your town is shut down, your school system, then your hospital shuts down. So suddenly you can't work here. So your kid might have the voucher and you're thrilled that they got their $7,000 and you're sitting over at your little private school and you think this is wonderful. Well, no, you don't have a job and nobody's going to buy your house. So you're going to move. And I would tell you, if that sounds doomsday-ish, it is. But is it realistic? Unfortunately, yes. And do your research. This has happened. This has happened. Ask people in different states how it was when their hospital shut down. It's a problem. So you think you're going to apply for your $3,300. I would just tell you that there are long-term repercussions from doing that. And you might say, well, everybody else says you're right. Everybody else might. And I don't know what I would do if you. I can tell you that I'm not going to apply for a voucher. I'm not going to apply for my $6,600 because I like to live in Edenton. I think it's a great town. I want to support it. I want my hospital to stay open. I want my businesses to stay open. I want to be able to have a grocery store to go to. And I believe in making sure that all children have access to a good education. Because I would rather pay for them to get an education than pay for them to sit in prison. So, subscribers, see you in a minute.